For 2 consecutive nights just after Christmas 1980, American servicemen stationed at RAF Bentwaters and Woodbridge saw mysterious lights in nearby Rendlesham Forest. The incident was to become one of the world's most talked about UFO encounters. Now, Inside Out has investigated the case, and tonight we can reveal what we think really happened. Not only will we show you that most of it was a hoax, but also how it was done. By the end of 1980, these 2 Suffolk bases were on a state of high alert as US relations with Soviet Russia worsened. It was also a time of spectacular planetary activity. Meteorite showers were seen regularly in the night sky over eastern England. So there would have been a lot on the mind of a nervous security guard who'd just been posted to Woodbridge's East Gate. His superior officer recalls the events leading up to the alleged UFO incident.
There'd been lights in the sky, quite frankly. I'd actually seen them myself, but I was convinced they were either a star or a planet. It was a clear night. You could see, and it tended to look like an aircraft that was landing, but it wasn't moving. And the individual that was on this post, he was on this post for a reason. He was one of our security people, and he was very gullible, tended to see things. I was the law enforcement patrolman, so when he started seeing ghosts and goblins, I'd have to come out here and pat him on the wrist and say, they're not going to hurt you. Quite frankly, he was afraid of the dark.
During the night of the 26th of December, the gate guard reported strange lights coming from the forest. 3 airmen left the base to investigate. They were unable to identify the source. Later, researchers have strongly suggested that the men were fooled, in part at least, by the Orford Ness Lighthouse. But back then, UFO hysteria was taking hold. The next night, Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Holt was urgently called out of a Christmas dinner. The UFO was back. Holt took a team of men into the forest, armed with an image intensifier and a tape recorder.
I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's bright as it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Pieces of it are shooting off. There is no doubt about it. This is weird. Right here. See it?
The men claimed that they had encountered an alien craft. They left the forest in pursuit of what they thought were its lights. They tramped across farmland towards the coast. It's entirely likely they were seeing the lighthouse again, as well as other lights at sea. Holt and his men filed top-secret witness reports. They were deliberately put out of public reach. However, copies of the tape recording were leaked, and the myth of the Rendlesham incident gathered momentum.
We see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon.
When you listen to Colonel Holt's tape, which is brilliant, and I do believe it's genuine, you hear a group of men who don't seem entirely familiar with their equipment.
Looks like an eye winking at you. It's still moving from side to side.
When they point the image intensifier at any light source, it seems to dazzle them. But when they point it at the lighthouse, you hear the guy cry out that the whole screen has gone white. Well, it would. These things are made to magnify starlight. You know, when they magnify a lighthouse beam, it's a wonder it didn't damage his eyes. It again says to me that they were completely genuine and sincere, but with all respect, they didn't know what they were doing. I think the whole Rendlesham myth has developed from a series of coincidences, perhaps a bit of clumsiness, and now a bit of face-saving, and a little bit of checkbook ufology, it's called, I think.
It doesn't take much to fire people's imagination. The woman who first investigated the case is convinced that the phenomenon was true. She carries a torch for the believers' camp.
It was definitely a craft because we've seen crafts down here. Rendlesham is a very, very magical place. It's like a doorway opening from another dimension. We've seen really strange myths which have got ghostly things in.
Serious research, however, didn't come until the late 1990s, with a discovery which was to begin to show the truth.
I uncovered the witness statements during 1997, and they were absolutely devastating to the popularised perception of a credible UFO case. These proved beyond any doubt that Orford Ness Lighthouse and other coastal lights were a decisive factor in the UFO sightings. These were documented facts within statements which Lieutenant Colonel Holt had requested from the participants in that first incident.
The individual accounts contradicted each other, but the men do admit they had been following a beam from the lighthouse. Yet there was still the puzzle of the red and blue pulses of light. Until now, that is. We've tracked down a security policeman who was based at Woodbridge at the time. His story dramatically retells the whole affair.
Obviously, it was fertile ground for a practical joke, and practical jokes are a tradition in the security police. And it was on a night when I wasn't alone. There was another person in the car. We were bored. It was fairly late. There was an alert going on, which is why I had someone else with me. And we're driving an American police car, which has the blue and red emergency lights, spotlights, floodlights on the side of the light bar. So we came up the taxiway here with the lights on the patrol car off, so he didn't hear us or see us coming, and got behind these barriers so he couldn't actually see the patrol car. And when we were all ready, we turned on all the lights except for the headlights of the patrol car, cranked the wheel around, and just drove in a slow circle with those lights swirling in the fog. And I had the PA, what you'd call a loud hailer, and I was making weird noises on that PA. And we did that until we heard something going on the security radio network, and once we realized we had the effect we wanted, we shut it all off, and this is all I ever knew about what went on afterwards. It's amazing where it went after that. It was just a practical thing. And when I read, like, Colonel Halt's statement, he's talking about an area flooded with bright white light. Well, I had floodlights on the side of my police car and white spotlights pointing straight in the air, and he's talking about flashing blue and pulsating red. Well, we had blue and red flashing lights.
Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming out of the ground. This is unreal. There's one object spilled over Woodbridge Base at about 5 to 10 degrees off the horizon, still moving erratic and similar lights and hanging down this area.
I don't believe in coincidence. If they're seeing lights like this and I'm over here doing that, then obviously they had to see my little practical joke. And what it boils down to is it wasn't a UFO, it was a 1979 Plymouth Volare.
The newspapers didn't break the story until 1983, by which time Condi had returned to the States. He had no idea that his hoax was largely responsible for the Rendlesham UFO. Will his amazing revelations start to change opinions? One of the servicemen who went into the forest on both nights was Sergeant John Burrows. And over the years, he's kept himself out of the limelight. But tonight, for Inside Out, he's agreed to break his silence. He's on the line now. Hello, Sergeant Burrows. Now, you've remained fairly quiet over the years, in contrast to Charles Holt and Jim Pennister. Why have you remained quiet over what you saw?
Because I feel that Holt and Penniston have dramatized it, and I mean, I'll stick with my honest opinion from day one. I don't know what happened. I do know it wasn't the lighthouse, but the blue lights coming down out of the skies, I still have never heard of any technology capable of doing what I saw happen out there.
Would you accept that the blue lights and possibly red lights you saw could have been a vehicle that was in the vicinity, a police car perhaps?
No, not. I'm not saying there wasn't anything out in the distance off the road, but the original stuff that we saw cannot be mistaken for police cars or anything like that. To me, I've seen jokes played and stuff like that, and there's just no way possible that they could have gotten away with that. They would have went to jail for it.
When we spoke to Sergeant Burrows, he said that if anybody had done this on the base, you could have faced a court-martial for what you did.
For what?
For playing a practical joke.
For what?
That's what
for
he
driving
said.
in a circle in a police car.
That's what he said.
Where's the criminal intent?
He said that if that had happened on the base...
I might have gotten a letter of reprimand for conduct unbecoming. Had it come out then this was me, I would have said, hey, it was a practical joke. It was absolutely stupid. I'm sorry. Do what you have to do, and let's get it behind us. The calmer heads would look at me and say, Kevin, that probably wasn't the brightest thing you could have ever done. Spank, spank. Go on and sin no more. And then they looked at these guys saying they thought this guy, there was a UFO. Give me a break. We had a very serious job. These guys were responsible for protecting the flight line and the aircraft and all the weapon systems and the storage areas that went with that. And you don't want people who you have less than great faith in their judgment in that kind of job.
There were rumors that drug taking and drinking was widespread on the base. Are these factors to take into account?
Colonel Halt himself came from a Christmas party. Whether he'd been drinking or not, I have no idea. I have no idea, but if you ask me, could he have been? Certainly. Was he? I don't know.
So we put the question to Holt, who replied that the party he'd left was merely a family gathering. Also, we asked if he could have got it wrong, to which he said, "I'm offended by the question."
If they'd gone out because they thought an aircraft was down, and once they got out where they thought they saw it and they didn't find it, and they simply said, hey, we saw some lights, we checked it out, there's nothing here, and they'd come back to the base, then no harm, no foul. But when they keep chasing these lights and it gets bigger and bigger, then you've got the you're an idiot factor that comes in, I think, and that they're afraid to come back here and say, hey, it was nothing. There's nothing that I can say or tell or show you out here that's going to change it. People are obviously going to say that I'm out of my mind, that I'm part of the conspiracy, that I'm some nutcase. Nothing that we tell them is going to change what they believe.
Well, there you have it, straight from the hoaxer's mouth. Now, we reckon we've just blown a black hole this big. Now, on second thought, this big in the Rendlesham UFO theory.